1943, Burbank, California. Dawn breaks over Lockheed's airfield. No applause, no speeches, just the metallic rhythm of tools striking steel and the hum of engines being tested for war. Inside a restricted hangar, a 33-year-old engineer stands over blueprints stained with oil and fingerprints. He is not a general, not a fighter ace, not a man who will stand on a battlefield. But this morning, Kelly Johnson prepares a different kind of weapon. One built not from gunpowder, but equations. Clarence Kelly Johnson was born in Michigan in 1910, the son of Swedish immigrants. No military heritage, no aristocratic lineage. Just a boy fascinated by air, pressure, and wings. At the University of Michigan, he devoured aerodynamics. Not for prestige, but because he believed flight held the future. When Lockheed hired him in 1933, he was young, intense, and unwilling to accept good enough as an engineering concept. He spoke little, worked relentlessly, and had no patience for theoretical brilliance untested in reality. In war, theory doesn't come home. Pilots do. Or they don't. America entered World War II needing a fighter unlike anything in existence. Fast, long range, lethal. Johnson pushed Lockheed to build a machine others thought impossible. Twin engines, long wings, heavy armament, and speed beyond conventional limits. The result was the P-38 Lightning, a predator with two tails and one purpose: control the sky. Johnson didn't celebrate. No public glory, no ego. Instead, he walked the production lines, spoke directly to pilots, studied failures like crime scenes. He worked in silence not out of modesty, but duty. If he was wrong, men died. That responsibility shaped every decision, every bolt, every wing curve. In the Pacific, the P-38 proved itself. Japanese Zero pilots who once owned the air suddenly found a hunter faster in climb, fiercer in dive, deadlier in firepower. The Lightning struck supply lines, escorted bombers, and made distance a weapon rather than a weakness. It was engineering turned into battlefield leverage, the kind that wins wars before soldiers land on shores. Behind the scenes, Johnson went further. He created a hidden team of hand-picked engineers, small, fast, focused, working in a locked facility away from bureaucracy. They answered directly to him and ultimately to the war. No layers, no committees, no delays. What they built there would become legend under one name: Skunk Works. He pushed for a new frontier, propulsion without propellers. A jet, a machine driven not by tradition but physics and necessity. Germany was working on jets. The race was real, and speed was survival. Johnson's team worked like men chased by time itself, drafting by day, testing by night, driven by a belief that hesitation loses wars. He asked one question again and again. Is this truly the best you can do? If the answer was anything but yes, the work continued. Soon the Hala aircraft he built would silently shape one of the most precise strikes of the war, the interception of Admiral Yamamoto, the architect of Pearl Harbor. Not luck, not coincidence, calculation, range, speed, engineering. Johnson never pulled the trigger, but his design carried the mission to its mark. No speeches, no headlines, no public credit. Just a man who understood that in war, perfection isn't ambition, it's obligation. And as the engines cooled and reports came in, one question lingered in the mind of those who worked beside him. How far would this relentless pursuit of engineering perfection reshape the future of air combat and the fate of nations? Like and subscribe. Stories like this are built, not born. April 18th, 1943. Over the Solomon Islands, Pacific Ocean. A formation of P-38 Lightnings slices across the horizon, flying low enough for ocean spray to touch their belly tanks. No radio chatter. No room for error. They are navigating not by instinct, but by mathematics. Distance, fuel burn, speed, altitude, timing. Every number calculated, every variable controlled. The mission: intercept and eliminate Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, mastermind of Pearl Harbor. Only one aircraft in the American arsenal could fly this far, this fast, and still fight. Johnson didn't plan the mission, but his aircraft made it possible. In war, strategy chooses targets. Engineering determines if they can be reached. And today, the Lightning carries a message across the Pacific. Range is power. The ambush succeeds. Yamamoto's transport falls from the sky. For Japan, it is a shock. For American commanders, validation. But for Kelly Johnson, it's not triumph, it's proof that his math held under fire. Engineering isn't just numbers, it's consequences. He reads the after-action reports, notes pilot comments, identifies weaknesses. Success is not a finish line, it is data for improvement. Back in California, the war presses forward. Pilots push the P-38 into brutal environments, tropical humidity, long-range escort missions, violent dogfights at high altitude. Issues appear: compressibility in steep dives, cockpit heating, cooling challenges in hot climates. Many designers would defend their work. Johnson does the opposite. He boards a military transport and flies to the front. He meets pilots face to face. He listens more than he speaks. Problems are not excuses, they are instructions. He returns to Burbank with notebooks full of pilot insights, maintenance challenges, and new calculations. Wing tweaks, engine airflow revisions, cockpit adjustments for heat and visibility. The Lightning evolves not in theory, but in combat. That philosophy becomes Johnson's signature: design with data, not ego. While the P-38 dominates the Pacific, whispers spread through Allied intelligence, Germany has fielded a jet fighter, the Me-262. Speed is no longer a feature, it is destiny. Whoever controls velocity controls the war's next chapter. Johnson senses what others fear to articulate. Propellers are entering their final era. So, in a corner of the Lockheed facility, he accelerates an idea already sketched in his head: an American jet fighter. The Army gives him 150 days to move from concept to flight. Impossible for most teams, with some. But Johnson doesn't run a normal team. No bureaucracy, no committees, no delay. Engineers who talk more than they solve are removed. Work flows like combat: fast, direct, unforgiving. His crew builds in a rented circus tent beside Lockheed's factory, close enough to borrow tools, isolated enough to maintain secrecy. The tent leaks when it rains. Rats wander in at night, but they deliver results. This is the birthplace of Skunk Works. Not a high-tech bunker, but a noisy, cramped, improvised creative battlefield. Innovation doesn't need polished walls, it needs pressure and purpose. Engine tests shake the ground. Fuel lines burst, parts overheat, metal stresses beyond tolerance. Johnson stands with his arms folded, jaw set, not angry, just calculating. His engineers don't fear him, they fear letting a pilot down. Every flaw is fixed, every spare minute turned into momentum. They are not building an aircraft. They are building time itself, measured in minutes saved on the battlefield. This jet, soon known as the XP-80, becomes America's first operational jet fighter, a machine born not from luxury, but from wartime necessity, improvised tools, and relentless efficiency. It flies within the deadline. It proves America will not allow the future to belong to another nation. Through all of this, Johnson never steps into the spotlight. His power isn't charisma or rank. It is certainty and purpose. He chooses silence over praise, precision over popularity. In a war where some chase glory, he chases reliability. Because glory fades, performance decides history. And as pilots climb into aircraft shaped by his designs, trusting their lives to invisible aerodynamic laws and metal geometry, one truth becomes clear: battles are not won when bullets fire, but long before, when minds like Johnson's refuse to accept good enough. So while factories roar, while generals brief, while newspapers print victories and losses, Johnson asks the only question that matters. If speed decides survival, what new horizon must be reached before the enemy reaches it first? July 1944, Burbank, California. In a fenced-off corner of the Lockheed plant, a weathered canvas tent rattles in the summer wind. It doesn't look like the birthplace of a revolution. Just tarps, wood, and the faint hum of generators. Yet inside, engineers scribble formulas on metal panels, welders throw sparks across concrete floors, and jet engines scream against steel restraints. The world believes war is won in open skies and on bloody shores. But here, victory is being engineered in secrecy, under canvas and pressure. Kelly Johnson walks the lines not like an executive, but like a foreman of precision. He doesn't pace, he inspects. Nothing escapes his eyes. A misaligned rivet, a loose fuel clamp, a drawing revised without updating tolerances. His presence is quiet but absolute. He talks little, asks for results, and offers one guarantee to every person under that tent. If their work is right, pilots live. If it isn't, pilots don't come home. There are no speeches needed to motivate a team like that. Johnson creates rules that become legendary in aerospace culture. He demands direct communication, no chain of command when seconds matter. Engineers talk to mechanics, mechanics talk to pilots, and everyone talks to Johnson. One problem, one owner, one solution. Meetings last minutes, not hours. Documents fit in a folder, not a cabinet. Materials arrive early, or they don't get used. It is wartime engineering stripped to its essence. Solve fast, solve right, move on. His leadership style is not loud. It is precise. He fires nobody in anger and praises nobody for routine success. Excellence is the baseline. When someone asks how long a test run will take, his answer is always the same. Long enough to know, short enough not to waste time. That is the Skunk Works doctrine. Urgency without panic, speed without chaos, innovation without arrogance. The XP-80 prototype rolls out, polished metal still warm from assembly. It looks like the future, sleek, swept tail, a nose built for speed rather than propellers. No one claps. There are no photographers. Engineers wipe sweat from their brows. Pilots climb aboard, and engines spool up with a rising whine unlike any prop plane on Earth. On its first flights, the aircraft climbs faster than observers expect, accelerates like nothing built in the United States before. In those moments, the era of the jet doesn't begin with an announcement. It simply arrives. But Johnson isn't finished. Success is not comfort. It is demand. Every flight inspires a list of changes. Every design, victory points to the next weakness. He sketches ideas for future jets even while the XP-80 is still warm from landing. War accelerates invention, and he refuses to let the enemy define the pace. His colleagues describe him not as inspirational, but inevitable, like weather or gravity. Pilots trust him even though he never flew combat. Commanders rely on him without ever hearing him speak. In strategy meetings, to them he is a force of reliability, a man who brings tomorrow faster than anyone else. Not because he claims he can, but because he simply does. Beyond performance, Johnson builds something rarer, a culture, a belief system that says bureaucracy kills innovation and innovation saves lives. Every engineer who works under him learns a lesson that lasts a lifetime. The battlefield may be thousands of miles away, but responsibility is not. The man tightening a bolt in California is as connected to the war as the man firing a machine gun in the Pacific. News from overseas filters back, Allied momentum growing, island by island, sky by sky. P-38s escort bombers deeper into enemy territory. Jet fighters approach production. The war's end is not guaranteed, but possibility becomes visible. And in quiet moments, Johnson allows himself a single thought. If American pilots come home, then the work was worth every sleepless night. He never says it aloud. He never needs to. The sound of engines, the sight of a returning squadron, the silence of a missing one, those are his language. And as new aircraft rise off the runway and vanish into the blue, one question sits under every decision, every test, every calculation. If innovation wins wars, how do you keep inventing fast enough when the world refuses to slow down? Like the video and subscribe. History is engineered by minds like this, not just monuments and medals. August 1945, Washington, D.C. The war is ending. Headlines roar victory, soldiers prepare to come home, and banners rise across American cities. But in offices thick with cigar smoke and military reports, the mood is not celebration, it is calculation. The world has changed. Jet engines exist. Radar exists. Atomic weapons exist. And in the shadows of this new reality, one truth becomes undeniable. Air dominance is now the currency of global power. Kelly Johnson returns to Washington not as a celebrity, but as a necessity. Generals, admirals, intelligence chiefs, they request him personally. They don't need speeches, they need vision. Bombers have crossed oceans. Fighters have shattered speed limits. But the next threat is different, unknown, potentially faster and farther than anything before. Peace feels temporary, fragile, conditional. The war taught the world that breakthroughs decide battles. And whoever invents first decides peace. Johnson knows this instinctively. Victory does not slow him, it pushes him. He studies captured German jet technology, examines enemy designs, notes their flaws and their strengths. The Me-262 is dangerous, but heavy and tactically limited. The Heinkel jets promise range, but lack reliability. The lessons are clear. Speed is vital, but control, fuel, structure, they remain the real battlefield. Anyone can chase speed. Few can survive it. Back in Burbank, returning pilots visit the factories. They shake hands with engineers, thank machinists, touch the aluminum skins of planes that brought them home. Some bring photographs of aircraft riddled with holes but still flying. Those images tell Johnson everything he needs to know. Engineering didn't end lives, it saved them. That knowledge does not inflate him, it binds him tighter to the responsibility ahead. He walks the assembly lines, but something shifts. Peace brings paperwork. Committees reappear. People who sat silent during crisis return to suggest, supervise, and slow. Johnson pushes back hard. He knows what speed costs, and what delay destroys. He writes rules, blunt, practical, uncompromising, for every future project. 10 principles that will become Skunk Works law. Build quickly, communicate directly. Empower specialists. Avoid unnecessary reporting. Protect autonomy. Above all, trust the engineer who signs his name to the result. Propellers fade. Jet engines roar louder. Testing becomes more dangerous than combat once was. New prototypes shake runways and tear early airframes apart. Pilots climb into machines no human has flown before. Johnson does not gamble with their lives. He calculates for them. His design reviews are not debates. They are interrogations. A single unknown is unacceptable. A single assumption can kill. Confidence is earned only by data and discipline. He begins drawing aircraft with wings so thin they look impossible. Fuselages built not for comfort, but for speed and altitude. Engineers whisper about projects no one outside their circle will ever know. Some Americans think peace means rest. Johnson understands peace means acceleration. The world is splitting into 2 camps, and machines will guard the barrier. Young engineers gravitate toward him, not for praise, but for purpose. They don't join to build planes, they join to build the future. He becomes a mentor by example, not rhetoric. He teaches them that engineering is character measured in stress loads and safety margins. A plane cannot lie, and neither can the man who builds it. The late 1940s bring a new adversary. Not Germany or Japan, but uncertainty. The Soviet Union rises behind iron borders. Intelligence reports hint at weapons testing in frozen secrecy. Radar stations scan northern skies. Military briefings grow colder. Strategy pivots from victory to vigilance. Johnson sees what is coming long before headlines do. The war is over, but the race has begun. His aircraft are no longer built to fight dogfights over islands. They are built to fly higher than guns, faster than sound, farther than borders. Machines not only for war, but for deterrence, reconnaissance, and survival in a divided world. Precision becomes politics. Aerodynamics becomes geopolitics. And as the United States transitions from wartime urgency to peacetime bureaucracy, Johnson confronts his greatest engineering challenge yet. How do you build for a future no one has ever seen? When the world believes the danger has already passed. 1950, Groom Lake, Nevada. A dry lake bed in the middle of the desert. No signs, no guards at the gate, just heat radiating off cracked sand and silence thick enough to feel like isolation itself. The war is over, but the ground here vibrates with urgency. Engineers unload crates in secrecy. Maps marked with no names are rolled across folding tables. The Cold War isn't declared, yet everyone here acts as if it's already begun. Kelly Johnson stands in the dust, sleeves rolled, notebook in hand, eyes scanning the horizon. He sees not emptiness, but runway potential, altitude corridors, and air thin enough to test ideas that seem impossible anywhere else. To others, this place is barren. To him, it is sanctuary. A proving ground for machines the world will not hear about until decades later, if ever. The Soviet Union has detonated an atomic bomb. The intelligence community is blind to what lies beyond its borders. Satellites don't yet exist. High-altitude reconnaissance aircraft are dream and necessity at the same time. Johnson understands the stakes without needing a briefing. If you cannot see your enemy, fear becomes strategy. America needs eyes that fly above threats, beyond missiles, outside radar. Not faster, higher. Not weaponized, watchful. Information, not firepower. He sketches a shape almost too fragile for war. Long wings, thin fuselage, a glider mated to a jet engine, a plane designed not to fight but to know. The U-2, built to soar above 70,000 feet, beyond reach, beyond imagination. Some call it impractical, others naive. Johnson treats doubt as noise. He has heard worse every decade. Progress never begins with consent. At Skunk Works, secrecy becomes second nature. Engineers drop tools when unauthorized footsteps approach. Pilots prepare under code names. Prototypes disappear into the night. There are no announcements, no press releases, no ceremonial rollouts. This is not legacy building, it is survival. The first U-2 flight looks wrong to observers. Too fragile to fly, wings bending dangerously, engines coughing at altitude. But as altitude increases, drag falls, lift dominates, and the aircraft settles into a smooth, unnatural stillness high in the sky. Below, the entire world shrinks to quiet geometry. Roads become threads, cities dots, mountains brushstrokes. A continent looks peaceful from heights where rifles, missiles, and borders lose meaning, and where truth becomes visible again. Johnson does not smile. Achievement is not satisfaction. It is merely confirmation that the next step is possible. The U-2 missions begin. Photographs return. Nuclear sites revealed. Missile deployments documented. Intelligence turns from speculation to certainty. The Cold War's most dangerous emotion, fear of the unknown, weakens. But success carries its own weight. The higher America sees, the higher it must go next. There is no finish line. Johnson begins designing aircraft that sound like myth. Titanium frames, speeds 3 times the speed of sound, altitudes where air barely exists. Soon the SR-71 Blackbird will streak across the edge of space, outrunning missiles and radar. A machine so advanced, even physics feels like it bends around it. Yet Johnson remains unchanged. Same quiet walk, same folded arms, same standards. He does not chase fame because fame doesn't fly. He chases reliability, altitude, silence, certainty. History remembers pilots with medals and politicians with speeches, but Johnson's victories live in gaps, the battles that never happened because someone saw danger early. The crises avoided because intelligence replaced panic. The peace maintained not by force, but by clarity. As years turn and his hair greys, younger engineers ask him what secret mattered most. He never speaks of designs, metals, or classified corridors. His answer is always the same. Know why you're building, not just what you're building. Machines are metal. Purpose is everything. Decades later, nations will boast missiles and stealth fleets, but the blueprint for modern advanced aviation, speed, altitude, secrecy, autonomy, trust in engineers, traces back to a quiet man with a pencil behind his ear and zero patience for limits. And as the desert sun sets over the runway that once held only dust, one question floats in the heat haze, unanswered, because progress never truly answers. It only asks again, if knowledge keeps a nation safe, what happens when the race for it never ends?